This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Oral questions. Questions O'Hat. The Honourable Member from Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
After 9 years of these NDP Liberals, the cost of housing has doubled, our national debt has doubled, and Canadians can't afford to feed themselves or their families. Now we've learned that there are 24 Liberal MPs who are looking for the Prime Minister to resign. After 9 years of these NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up for this Prime Minister who can't fix what he's broken in this country while he's dealing with his revolting caucus. So will he stand up today and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And you know, for years we've been hearing rumours about the Conservative Party of Canada's leader, and now it's out in the open. His party is full of people fighting to restrict the freedom of women. The MP for Richmond-Athabasca, former member, acted with his conscience to stand up for women. But why won't the other members of his caucus do the same? In fact, what they're doing, Mr. Speaker, is fraternizing with the lobbyists that want to attack the rights of women across this country.
The Honourable Member from Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Well, did you hear that? It's the sound of desperation from a government that's broken absolutely everything in this country. They broke housing, they broke immigration. Canadians can't afford to eat, heat, or house themselves after 9 years of these failed NDP Liberals. And all Canadians want is to be able to afford a home, to be able to have a home in a good, safe neighborhood where they can retire comfortably. And all they're asking to do is to be able to work hard in exchange for that privilege. It was a promise we made to Canadians, and they broke it. So instead of fighting with his 24 members who want him to resign, why won't he stand up and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure my honourable colleague that we understand the challenges that families are experiencing in our communities, but those families are right to ask who is actually fighting for them. The seniors who have earned their pensions, not just with their premiums, but with decades of hard work, bad backs, busted joints, are facing an opposition leader who has a history of gutting their pensions. The Conservative Party has members who voted against removing the interest on student loans. And families, if you receive the Canada Child Benefit, know that there is not one Conservative member of Parliament who voted to support you with thousands of dollars every year. Mr. Speaker, there are two choices: a Liberal government who will stand up for families, a Conservative leader who will stand up for himself.
The Honourable Member from Stormont, South Glengarry.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, time is up for the Prime Minister's endless chaos and failures. And let's use his own words on immigration just from last year to prove it. Quote, as our government is raising immigration levels to the highest levels that have ever been, people are like, we're already facing challenges in housing. Where are we going to house these 500,000 people per year? And now, a year too late, the Prime Minister made an announcement that is an admission of a massive failure of his record after 9 years. Will the Prime Minister admit that his flip-flop has caused lasting damage to Canada's housing market, healthcare and jobs?
The Honourable Minister for Employment and Workforce Development.
Mr. Speaker, we've answered that question already this week. My question, and a question that Canadians from the queer community want to know, is where was that member, who is a member of the queer community, when it came to 50% of kids living in the street who are LGBT because their straight parents kicked them out? Where's that member when Blaine Higgs went after trans kids in New Brunswick? Where's that member when Danielle Smith is saying she's going to take the rights of trans kids away? Where's that member when Scott Moe is focusing on bathrooms in a Saskatchewan election? He will not show up at Canadian Pride events when we talk about trans issues. He should be ashamed. He is not defending the queer community of Canada.
The Honourable Member from Stormont, South Glengarry.
I'm proud of who I am and proud of my integrity when that minister can't even name the other Randy. So I'm not going to take any lectures from that guy, Mr. Speaker. But here's what the Prime Minister said just last year about the immigration system. Quote, there are a lot of pressures on our system, increasing the immigration levels. Interestingly, though, it'll take some pressure off the system. They have absolutely failed and they broke our immigration system. They've doubled housing costs and they did a massive flip-flop yesterday that they're embarrassed to even talk about. After 9 years, why can't we just have a carbon tax election to boot that member and this government out of here?
The Honourable Member for Employment and Workforce Development.
Where's that member's voice and the members of the Conservatives when queer refugees are struggling to come to the country? I tell you, they are nowhere to be found. Where is that member sticking up for trans kids when we have Canadian Pride caucus meetings? Not to be found. Neither is the MP for Thornhill. Mr. Speaker, they try to wrap themselves in the rainbow flag when it's convenient to get Conservative votes. They are simply not truthful with Canadians. They are not truthful with the queer community. Do you hear the heckling, Mr. Speaker? They can't handle it when we punch. They can't handle it when we stick up for the queer community. They do not stick up for the 2S LGBTQ community. We do. We're Liberals. We're the government. We've got kids' backs.
Crime is up in Toronto with shootings up 45% and gun-related homicides up 62% since last year. While the Prime Minister celebrates on social media, police associations are condemning his failed handgun policy. The Toronto Police Association states criminals did not get your message. Will the Prime Minister stop working against the police and reverse his failed crime wave policy?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's really concerning that all Canadians should be aware that what Conservatives are proposing in their ways to make our streets safer is to actually put more guns on the street. We have banned handguns and assault weapons that were designed for the battlefield, and Conservatives want to make those guns legal again. Mr. Speaker, we know investments in crime prevention and investments in our border to prevent illegal guns into our country, and to ban handguns is a solution to make our communities safe.
Good job.
I'm going to remind members, please, not to take the floor unless they're recognized by the Speaker. The Speaker is now recognizing the Honourable Member from Calgary Centre.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. When that member responded on social media to similar claims, the Toronto Police Association said, "We are sharing data about gun violence in Toronto. These facts represent the work of our members and the lives of victims. Shame on anyone who suggests otherwise." End quote. After 9 years of violent gun crime has doubled in Canada. In Calgary, it's quadrupled. That is the Liberal record. Will the Prime Minister end his self-congratulatory rhetoric and start listening to the police to stop this deadly crime wave?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, while Conservatives like quotes, let me quote their record on the issue. When Conservatives were in power, they cut $143 million out of CBSA. That was 1,100 CBSA employees. And what did the former president of the public safety workers say at the time? He said, quote, "More weapons, illegal drugs, child pornography will pass through our borders, not to mention terrorists and sexual predators and hardened criminals," end quote. That's the Conservative record.
The Honourable Member from Sturgeon River Parkland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think what that member just illustrated is what has happened under 9 years of this NDP Liberal government. Taxes are up, costs are up, violent crime continues to go up. The Liberals' gun ban does nothing to stop violent crime on our streets. In fact, violent gun crime is up 116% across Canada since this Liberal government took power. The Vancouver Police Association agrees. They stated, "Stopping legal sales will not stop criminals from getting guns illegally. They're only restricting law-abiding citizens while doing little to actually address crime and violence." When will these Liberals finally listen to police, stop attacking law-abiding gun owners, and go after the violent criminals instead?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I spent 39 years of my life fighting gun violence in the City of Toronto. And one of the things I learned is that cops count. But today, Mr. Speaker, there are 700 fewer police officers in Toronto than when I was the chief. And those are the same police officers that fought guns and gangs. They gave evidence at bail hearings and they kept neighborhoods safe. But just like Stephen Harper, who cut 1,000 RCMP jobs, successive Conservative mayors and premiers have frozen police budgets and frozen police hiring. And this is the price that we all pay for reckless Conservative cuts. And Mr. Speaker, if the Conservatives are looking for causation of the increase in violence, look in the mirror.
The Honourable Member from Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, under this Liberal government and under that Liberal minister, RCMP recruitment is at all-time lows. They should be the ones looking in the mirror. The Liberals' record on violent crime and car theft is abysmal. The Insurance Bureau of Canada published a report showing that car theft claims are up 138% since this Liberal government took power. Whenever the Liberals get up and brag about their action on car theft, people don't know whether to laugh or to cry. They're admitting that they failed terribly, but now they're bragging that they're failing just a little less spectacularly than they were before. When will these Liberals finally get serious, stop targeting law-abiding Canadians, and get serious about violent crime instead?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see Conservative hypocrisy. They think the way to keep our streets safe is by putting more guns in the hands of criminals. They think reducing workers at the CBSA to inspect illegal imports of guns is going to keep communities safe. Conservatives are all about cuts, including cuts to police forces, cuts to inspections at our border, and they want to ensure that handguns are legal again. Mr. Speaker, we know and Canadians know that keeping our communities safe is by banning illegal handguns.
From St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years, this NDP Liberal government isn't worth the cost or the corruption. Under this government, GC Strategies, a two-person firm working out of their basement, received a sole source contract for a Arrive scam. They did no work, the app didn't work, and they ran off with $20 million taxpayer dollars. A total scam. So, in the face of that, what specific steps is this government taking to get taxpayers their money back?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I have said time and time again, that we expect our procurement process to be followed with the rules and the regulations that are put in place. CBSA has already initiated a number of measures to build a more robust system. But I'd like to ask the member opposite, how far back would he like to go in terms of these contracts? Because just in 5 years under the Conservative government, those two principled employees that he speaks of had at least 13 contracts. Wow. So would he like that money back as well?
Wow. The Honourable Member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, it is clear that this government has taken no concrete measures to make taxpayers whole. The RCMP have opened an investigation into GC Strategies, and this week the Auditor General announced that she is investigating the $100 million in contracts awarded to GC Strategies by these Liberals. If the Liberals won't even try to get taxpayers their money back, then will they get out of the way and call an election so that Canadians can elect a common-sense Conservative government that will?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see the Conservatives completely misleading Canadians. It was actually under the Conservative government that these contracts first began with these principled employees. So they talk about getting out of the way. They were the ones that oversaw a procurement process that had these same individuals receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars in contracts. We have actually put in place through the CBSA a number of measures to ensure that our procurement process is robust, and we will continue to work to make sure that there's transparency in our system, something they failed to do.